Hey guys, it's Hannah, and it is finally time for my January wrap-up. I read, oh my gosh, how many books did I even read? I read 9 books this month, which is insane because 4 of them were physical books that are out already. However, the rest are all ARCs that I got from NetGalley because I apparently made an account like in 2020 and I finally signed up again this year. So I just applied for a ton of ARCs through NetGalley. I got approved for more than I thought that I would, so I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna be putting a lot of these on your radar because some of them were very, very good and I enjoyed my time with them. Thank you to NetGalley for all of these ARCs mentioned in this video and all of the publishers for actually accepting my application for these ARCs because my account said that it was made in 2020 and I had like a 0% feedback because I had not been approved for any and I didn't even know that I had an account that I made one in 2020. So thank you for trusting me. I also have 2 more that I'm gonna be reading next month, but that's gonna be in another video. However, let's get to the books that I read in January because there is a lot of them. The read that started off my year was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. I loved this book and I mostly picked it up because one of my friends said that she absolutely adored Yours Truly and I had to read this one first. This book was brilliant. It was just so much fun. It follows this doctor named Alexis and she comes from the city life. Her entire family are all very famous doctors. She has a lot of family drama going on. She basically is on her way home one day and passing through a small town to get home and she ends up running into a ditch. In comes Daniel, who is a little innkeeper in this small town. He pulls her out. They end up running into each other at a bar down the street and they form a little relationship. Lots of drama going on, but I had so much fun with this. I really enjoyed this. I really loved Alexis and how scared she was, but she grew so much. Daniel was literally the epitome of a golden retriever. He just knew how to love and that's like it. It was so cute. I loved them together. So I think I ended up giving this like 5 stars and I was like, how in the world does Yours Truly top it? Because Yours Truly is connected to this book. So I would definitely read this book first before you pick up Yours Truly, which was my second read of the year, and it automatically went on my favorite books of all time list. I loved this book so much. It basically follows Alexis's best friend Bree, and she is also a doctor at this hospital that they both work at. It takes place after Alexis and Daniel's story, and it follows Bree and this new mysterious hot doctor that she doesn't like very much named Jacob, and Jacob deals a lot with anxiety. So this is an amazing anxiety rep, at least for me personally. I related so much to Jacob and some of the things that he was doing. I did, and it makes so much sense. Why? Because I was literally ridden with anxiety when I was younger and I just saw myself in this book. It was just so good. It's on my top books of like all time. It's definitely gonna be on my top reads of 2024. It was on a lot of people's favorites list last year, so I'm glad I was convinced to buy this and I read both of them because I was like, ain't no way Abby Jimenez can top herself, and she did. So she has another book coming out this year, which I'm very excited for, and I've heard that it's amazing as well. So now I need to go read as many Abby Jimenez books as possible because I flew through them. I didn't want to stop reading them and I had so much fun while also dealing with a lot of deep topics like family trauma and anxiety and just so much more. Highly recommend those 2 books. I gave them both 5 stars, but I did love this one more. Then I read The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England by Brandon Sanderson. This is one of Brandon Sanderson's secret novels. It's been on my shelf since it probably came out at this point, and I didn't read it until now. I read Tress in the Emerald Sea at the beginning of last year. I didn't really love it as much as I had hoped I would, but I also was in the midst of my like very deep reading slump where nothing was like capturing my attention and I kind of just was kind of forcing myself to read. So I think if I reread that and read it with different light, I might enjoy it more like everyone else has. But I finally picked this one up and it was really entertaining. It follows this wizard that gets dumped in medieval England. He has to figure out who he is, has absolutely no recollection to who he is and why he is in medieval England now. So he keeps getting like little pieces of information. There's people after him. There's like a mob boss, basically. It's wild. This book is wild. It goes one direction, you think it's gonna go a different one, and it soars. It's insane. It just goes everywhere. I think it's gonna be really cool if he like expands more on this universe. Genuinely, I thought this book was gonna be one thing and it turned out to be something else. I did really enjoy my time with it. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. I ended up giving this book 3.5 stars. I enjoyed my time with it. I thought it was really fun. It's very sarcastic and witty and humorous, and it's just kind of a fun little adventure. Definitely for one of those where you want fantasy, but you're just not in the mood for high fantasy. It's like a fun time. So in that aspect, I really enjoyed this. I really want to pick up more Brandon Sanderson's secret novels because I've heard nothing but good things about all of his other ones. So hopefully I will add them to my shelves soon. All right, friends, now we're moving into the section of quite a few arcs that I read. So I'm gonna stand off to the side and show them here. The very first arc that I ever got was called Weekends with You by Alexandra Page. This is a new debut novel in the romance department. In this, we follow Lucy, and she's a very, very easy to love florist in London. So this all takes place in London, which is so fun. She ends up having to move and moves in with her best friend, but also with like 7 other roommates because they live in this warehouse and they have things called warehouse weekend. One weekend a month is when our love interest comes into town. He lives there, but he's a traveling concert photographer. However, him and Lucy strike up a little romance. She only gets to see him once a month. So we follow their kind of love story once a month during warehouse weekend, which is just all of the roommates getting together and having a fun weekend that one of them plans out, whether it's to go to the bars or to go to like a lantern festival or just do something fun in general. And I loved that. Had a good time with this. It's supposed to be a romance book, but I hated the love interest. He would just do things that I was like, Lucy can do so much better. I think there was just some things that if they were changed, I would have liked this novel more. Like, don't get me wrong, I loved the roommates. I loved their dynamics. I think they were all so fun. I wish that there was more of them because I adored all of them. And I think having that dynamic of like all of them living together and like the ins and outs of living with so many people would be really interesting. I just couldn't help but root for her. I loved Lucy as a main character. She was great. I just wish that the love interest was different. With all this to say, I did enjoy my time with it. I think the setting was awesome. The London setting. I really want to visit London one day, so I think that'll be really fun. The dialogue flowed super easily and I didn't have a hard time reading it and I just flew through it. So in that sense, I did give it like a very low 3 stars, honestly. And this book comes out on April 9th in 2024. All these books come out this year, but on April 9th by Avon Publishing. Next, another April release on April 2nd is a poetry book, and that's Before You Know It. This is by a publishing duo. So this is by a husband and wife, and they go by S.K. Williams, and this is coming out from Andrews McNeil Publishing. I rated this poetry book 4.5 stars. I felt so incredibly seen in this book. And it's one of the ones that I just like got to read for free and I didn't have to like apply through the publisher. It was just on the like read now one. I feel like as someone who just recently graduated college, I just felt so seen in not knowing what to do with my life. The authors are very interested in things that I'm interested in. One of them ended up wanting to go towards like screenwriting and stuff like that. We follow these authors from 18 to 28. So in a 10-year span, and you just go through the ups and downs through all of those 10 years that you're gonna be experiencing life. I just felt like the authors were puking my thoughts onto this page and it was beautiful. Then I got to another romance book because I'm on a romance kick lately. If you couldn't tell, I mostly read romance now, which was never the case years ago when I first started Bookstagram and BookTube. I was a fantasy girl. I would rarely read romance. And now that's like all that I read. I don't know what happened, but going off of that, we have another romance book, and that's Right on Cue, which I was so thrilled to be accepted for. This is by Putnam and Sons, which is an extension off of Penguin Random House. I got accepted for a lot of their books that are coming out, and it's coming out February 27th this month because it's February when I'm filming this. And I gave this 4.25 stars. This book follows Emmy and Grayson. Emmy comes from very famous parents. Dad recently passed away a few years ago, so it's just her and her mom, and Emmy Emmy is now a screenwriter, a very famous screenwriter, and she gave up acting years ago because something happened, which happened with Grayson, that they'll explain later. Now she's finally getting her Pride and Joy screenplay made into a movie, so she has her very best friend directing it, which was awesome and a fun little dynamic to see. Something happens, she ends up having to step in place of the main character. She shows up day one. It's not the leading man that she picked. Grayson entered the picture, so it's very much enemies to lovers. The amount of tension was just so good. The jokes were brilliant. It just was like a constant chemistry between the two of them. Their angst was just addictive. And I just like the relationships were really refreshing in this book. Emmy and her mom were very, very close, and it wasn't like those typical toxic mother-daughter relationships that you see a whole lot. It was really refreshing. Like, Emmy and her mom are super close. They were both super hilarious and supportive of one another, and I just loved their dynamic. I honestly wish I would have seen more of her mom because she was so fun. I will say the only complaint that I have is that in the third act, there's a very well-known trope that occurs that is one of my least favorite tropes that can literally be solved in like 2 seconds. But of course, it doesn't. I think the romance was a little bit insta-lovey, but honestly, it was fun, so I can't complain. I rated it at 4.25 stars. I just love reading books that are based in the movie world and film world because I desperately want to get into that. I want to do set design and set dressing for film and TV. As of right now, who knows? Speaking of that poetry book, who knows where I'm gonna be. Anyways, I really enjoyed this, and it's coming out February 27th. Next is a teen romance from Tor Teen. It's coming out May 28th, so this is 12th Night by Alexandra Farrell Volmuth. I'm not 100% sure if that's how you pronounce her name, but it is the author of the Atlas 6, Olivia Blake. Olivia Blake is not her real name, it's her pen name. She writes other YA books under her actual name, which I was so surprised by when I was reading the description of this book and it said it was by the same author. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It is so heavily inspired by Shakespeare. It's so good. I studied theater in college, so I really know all of the like Shakespeare lingo. This book was a ride and I enjoyed my time with it. So I honestly think this book was made for fandom lovers because it was just so reminiscent of my like middle school, high school time in life. It's basically a rom-com coming of age following Viola and Jack Orsino. Jack is basically the star football player. He is like an intense runner. He's gonna go to college for this. He ends up tearing his ACL and it takes him out of his senior year of football. He ends up getting introduced to this role-playing type game, ends up becoming friends with our other main character, Viola, who is absolutely obsessed with this game. However, she poses as her twin brother, Sebastian, and becomes friends with Jack, and they start to get to know each other. They also hate each other in real life. So that's a fun little twist and dynamic that's happening. It really talks a lot about sexism in this book, which I was so surprised about. Like, I wasn't expecting how heavy those themes were. So I will be honest, I did not like Viola in the beginning. I think she was a little bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie. I had to warm up to her, and I think once her layers were peeled off, I enjoyed her more by the end of the novel. And I just related so heavily to Jack. He's like another little golden retriever boy, because my senior year of high school, I broke my foot and sprained my ankle all in one go. So it took me out of, I was a really big dancer in high school, in middle school and all growing up, but I did competitive dance in high school and it took me out of my senior year of that. So I related hardcore to Jack and how you really find who your true people are during that experience, which is so interesting and not really something that you would have ever thought, but it does happen. So I think it was portrayed really well. I will say I fell in love with the side characters. I wish there was more of them. That is my one complaint about this book. I wanted more from the side characters. I was obsessed with them. They were so interesting. If there's a connecting book on them, I will be so happy. Like, there needs to be. There could be. I need Viola's brother, Bash, Sebastian, to have his own novel. I also need Olivia to have her own novel. I might have loved them more than the two main characters. I'm not even gonna lie. I had a really fun time with it, so I ended up giving it 4 stars, and it was a really fun, quick read. We have our last arc of the month. And that is What's in a Kiss. This is by Lauren Kate. It comes out July 2nd of this year. It's from Putnam. So I gave this book 3 stars. It was heavily influenced by 13 Going on 30 because our main character, Olivia, is basically just like not doing the best. and her best friend is getting married, and at the ceremony, she ends up getting transported into another timeline where she is no longer best friends with her best friend, and she's now married to her enemy. It's basically this whole, what if this kiss happened, what if it didn't back in high school, and how changed they both are, and how one thing can lead to another, and how every choice basically matters a lot of the time. It was fun, it was heartbreaking, it was charming, it was like warm and fluffy, and also just like tore my heart out. Olivia's a really easy character to root for. I just wish that we would have seen more of the like real timeline, because we really follow her fake timeline. And I honestly wish that this novel was a little bit longer to include a lot more of that, because it kind of just cuts off really abruptly, and I would have loved to see that. I think this is categorized as like an enemies to lovers, and like it kind of is, but you mostly get the fake timeline where they're not enemies, so do with that what you will. And the last book that I read this month was a physical copy, and that is Betting on You by Lynn Painter. I finally read this book and I loved it. I read it in one day, which, are we surprised? Because I've done that with every other Lynn Painter book that I've read. So this follows Bailey and Charlie, and they kind of hate each other since they meet on a plane from Alaska to Omaha, where Bailey is now moving to live with her mom and Charlie is also moving to live with his mom. So they meet on the plane and are part of the divorced parents club. Me too over here. But they didn't like each other quite literally at all. Surprisingly, they end up meeting years later and they end up becoming co-workers. Through that, they end up becoming best friends. There's some fake dating. It also just deals a lot with family dynamics and what it's like to be a child of divorce, which I related so heavily to, and I think Lynn Painter really did a good job about that. I just fell in love with the both of them and their romance, and it just, I love Charlie so much, and I love them. You don't really see divorce portrayed like to the accuracy that this book at least is, at least from in my opinion. In my experience, I related extremely heavily to this, and I honestly wanted to reread it because I just found so much comfort in these characters, and I gave it 5 stars because of course I did. I had to. I loved them. Also, if you want a playlist, I made a playlist for them if you're interested. Those are all the books that I read in January. Let me know what books you guys read in January. I read a lot of ARCs this month because I got a little overzealous with what I was doing, but that's okay. I had a fun time. So thank you so much to NetGalley and all those publishers. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye guys.